All Things Black with Garland and Calvin present Fanboys. Fanboys is a weekly breakdown of the sports world from a fan's perspective. Now, here are your hosts, Garland and Calvin.
All Things Black presents Fanboys. I'm Calvin, and the guy dancing to the beat of his own voice is Garland. What's going on, sir?
Man, feeling great. Happy belated De La Day. Yesterday was all De La Soul. Their catalog was released, and so just really been in De La Soul mode probably for the last 36 hours and stuff. And as a matter of fact, I should sound like Don Newkirk from 3 Feet High and Rising. So yeah, man, just got to, I already had the classics because I'm a hip hop head, so I already had them. But it's great that they're on streaming, and so now another generation gets to hear the catalog and all. And so yeah, happy belated day.
I meant to send you this podcast that I listened to. It's called The Word with Jason Johnson. Jason Johnson has been on CNBC. I mean, not CNBC, CNN, MSNBC. He has a podcast out, and his podcast the other day was last Friday was strictly about De La Soul. He had Don Will on there, hip hop producer. He had him on there, and they were talking about De La Soul. And when I listened to it yesterday, I meant to send it to you, so I'm gonna send you a copy today. It was actually pretty good, and it was a lot of the things that you and I talked about last week, or actually you talked about last week when you did your "Come On Man," where you were talking about De La Soul. So yeah. Probably be good, definitely be good to listen to, man. But we are, as you all know, we're here to talk about some sports. A lot of things going on last week since we last left you all. So, let me just turn it over. What we getting into today,
bro?
Sir?
We're gonna get into your Lakers. We're gonna talk some NBA, get into your Lakers, talk about your boy Charles Barkley, the round mound, the rebound. He bashing players again, and he might have a point. Going to talk a little bit about KD and his debut with the Phoenix Suns. And then we're going to jump into some football, talk about Brian Flores, and he kind of gets the green light to go ahead with his court case against the NFL. We're going to talk about our man Eric DaCosta and John Harbaugh, and they met with the press at the Combine earlier this week, and going to kind of talk about some of the things that came out of that. And it sparked a lot of emotion with one player on the team. We're going to kind of talk about these Yelp reviews that the NFL players left for their organizations. And so they didn't look too great, particularly we're going to talk
1 out of 10, I do not recommend.
Might want to check the Yelp before you go there. And then we're going to end up with some Come On Yos. And so let's go ahead and talk a little NBA first. And so the Lakers, after many months of drama and discontent, the sun was finally beginning to shine over the 22-23 Los Angeles Lakers. They nailed the trade deadline, and they had embarked on a 3-game winning streak, capped by a 27-point comeback against the Dallas Mavericks. But LeBron hurt his right foot and will be out for the next several weeks. As a matter of fact, many reports are saying he's probably not going to come back for the regular season. So according to the Ringers NBA odd machine, before LeBron's injury, the Lakers had a 23% chance to make the playoffs, and now that has dropped to 18%. And so let me ask you, Laker fan, are the Lakers done?
Well, my Lakers are sitting right now at number 11. You got to be 10 to make the play-in game. I believe they passed Utah. I want to say it is... Oh man, I just looked at. I can't remember who's in front of them, but they're one game out of the playoff, and exactly one game out of the playoff, play in rather. I mean, listen, I still got my Lakers making the play in. Don't act like you ain't kind of have them in it. So the rankings you may give them, they may say 18%, but Garland a couple weeks ago gave my Lakers a 75% chance of making the play-in tournament. Garland, you dropping from that?
I did. I am, because LeBron is injured, and you can't count on street clothes. He got dunked on the other night, and he just automatically quit. He quit the next game. He got yanked on.
Yeah, man. Even I had to turn away like, ooh.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the dunk on TV, I was like, he's not going to be playing the next game. Whenever that next game is, he's going to be injured. And sure enough, He did not play the next game. And so you can't count on street clothes to carry this team, man. And D'Angelo Russell and Dennis Schroeder and the rest of them are not going to carry this team. And so without LeBron, I have to modify my statement from a couple weeks ago. With no LeBron, no. See, they lost last night too, and so
I'll let you have that because you're not a Lakers fan. I'm a Lakers fan. My Lakers are making the play-in. But hold on, let me something that we've never talked about because when we started our podcast, it was already over. But let's talk real quickly. Let me tell you about Dennis Schroeder and how he hustled backwards. If you remember, Dennis Schroeder played for the Lakers when they won the most difficult championship, well, the year before actually, when they won the most difficult championship ever in the NBA history, which is the bubble championship. And you will not get me to say anything, the most difficult championship. But the Lakers had offered him a lucrative contract, and he was like, nah, I'm gonna go ahead and take my chance. Oh, wait a minute, he's French. No, VB, I'm gonna go ahead and take I thought he was French. He German?
Yeah, Schroeder.
He German. Thank you, stanky. BMW, thanky. Let's
stop right here.
I'm not going to take that contract.
By Calvin Coates. And after these, of all things black, Garland and Calvin.
Listen, so Mr. Sauerkraut decided that he was not going to take the Lakers offer and he was going to go out and test free agency. He went to the Celtics and got like a 1 year, whatever minimum contract it was. Now he came groveling back to the Lakers this year and they're paying him, but he missed out on his big payday. Listen, Angela Merkel is literally looking at him like, stinking, what are you doing?
Bro.
Anyway, that's my rant about Dennis Schroeder.
You almost gonna make me pull out a Schultz imitation from Hogan Heroes, but I'm not gonna join you. I'm not gonna do no Carol no Clink. I'm gonna let you handle this all your
listen, I stayed away from their darkest time in history, so I didn't hit that on them, but I'm going to talk about they trash ass BMWs. So, you know, Mr.
I got a BMW. Come on now. We're gonna stop. Hey y'all, let me save this man. All right, man. All I asked him was the Lakers going.
I had to get that. Listen, I had to get that off my chest. I've been so mad at Dennis Schroeder for like the past 4 years. I had to finally get it off my chest because we don't talk enough about how he fumbled. That is the definition of fumbling the bag. Whether it was from the Lakers or not, that is the definition of fumbling the bag. I'm gonna get some solid numbers, and I'm gonna just bring that up next week. Solid numbers.
Okay, because anyway, the Lakers they got it tough now. They got it tough.
They're making the play. They're still making the play.
No, I don't think so, Brody. I don't think so.
Make it. They're gonna make it.
All right. We're gonna leave it right there. All right, man. Chuck Barkley. I have to say I've had my issues with Charles Barkley, but you know he's at it again, bashing the players. And as reported by Chris Partee on Deadspin, TNT analyst and Hall of Famer Chuck Barkley appeared on First Take on Tuesday morning and said well-paid players are disrespectful for sitting out games. And so this is his exact quote: "You can't make 30, 40, 50 million. You can't make 30. I can't get the country. You can't make 30, 40, 50 million dollars and then sit out games. I think it's disrespectful to the game. I think it's disrespectful to the fans." And so, you know, this whole low management thing has been an issue for quite some time. So does the round mound of rebound have a point, or is he a hating biter old head?
Well, first of all, for all of those younger generation people, I'll call them the LeBron people, for all those younger generation people, Charles Barkley might be a clown on TV now. Charles Barkley was a force in the NBA.
The greatest power, one of the greatest.
Yes, yes, he is. And I know they do top 50 and recently top 75, but Charles Barkley is probably one of the top 10, arguably top 10, maybe top 15 at the least players ever in the NBA. The guy was amazing. So First of all, take all of that away. He doesn't have any rings. He was in the Jordan era. Him and a lot of other greats don't have rings. Yeah. Now, it depends on with Charles Barkley's statement, it really depends on which side of the NBA you fall on. If you fall on the player side of the NBA, then he doesn't have a point. You know, these players need to get healthy because the regular season in the NBA, as we all know, it's just a precursor. It's almost like the preseason after the preseason just to get to the playoffs. The playoffs is when the real games start in most people's estimation. But if you are a fan, if you're on the side of the fans, which sounds like Charles Barkley is, then he has a point. Let's think about it. And I'll use our area as an example. We don't have an NBA team here in Baltimore, so our closest team is the Wizards. So for us to see players like LeBron, players like John Morant, players, any of the great players, we have to go to D.C. to play them. The Lakers come once a year. Some of the teams like Philly and Embiid and all, they'll come a few times a year, but the Lakers will come once a year. So if you're, and NBA tickets are expensive. So if you're a fan and you go down there that one game, and they decide that they're not necessarily hurt, they're just taking a rest, that's disappointing. You know, you've paid a lot of money just to see your favorite player, especially for kids. And, you know, kids don't have really loyalties to city. Kids have loyalties to players. So your kid is getting all psyched up to see a John Morant, who's probably the most exciting player in the game right now, getting all excited to see him. And they come to Washington, and he just decides that this is a load management game. I'm going to sit. That kind of hurts. Now, we'll even take it to the home team. You know, because tickets are so expensive for the NBA, it's not like you're going to every game. Most people can't afford to go to every game. Most people don't have season tickets. So the one game you can go to, they don't want to play that game, you know, even if it's a home game, because they probably look at home games like, well, I can sit out at home because, you know, these players will see me again. These fans will see me again. Not necessarily. So he has a point if you're on the side of the fans. If you're on the side of the players, I can see the fight back against them. But I'm on Charles Barkley's side with that. Load management, I don't know if it's destroying or ruining the game, but it's kind of a black mark on the game. I don't want to go as far as a black mark because I understand it's kind of a negative right now on the game. And they're going to have to figure out something to keep these players from just sitting out unnecessarily.
I agree with you, and I agree with Charles Barkley, and it pains me to do that with Charles Barkley. But, yeah, you know, when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm going down DC to see the Wizards play the Warriors," I'll be like, "All right, you better check the schedule and make sure it's not a back-to-back. Because if it's a back-to-back and this is the end game of the back-to-back, 9 times out of 10, you ain't going to see Steph, you ain't going to see Clay, you ain't going to see Draymond, okay? And you don't want to drive all the way down DC to see Kuminga. And so it's really forcing you. And like you said, these games are not cheap anymore. Heck, we were talking last week about the CIAA and paying $30 for a chicken sandwich, fries, and the soda. And so we ain't talking about transportation down to the game, tickets to the game, food at the game, and then you don't see your favorite player at the game. And so, yeah, it is rough. I think that you're making, you know, it's amazing. It's always funny how we talk about how older generations did more with less. I mean, yeah, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, they were not necessarily crisscrossing the country to play these games all the time. And they didn't have the best treatment. Heck, they were playing in Chuck Taylors. Okay, they were playing in canvas tennis shoes. But, you know, there was no such thing as load management. You played the full season and then you played the playoffs. And now we have players that have, as Barkley said, and I agree, we have better medical treatment. We have better equipment. We have better equipped bodies and better transportation. But, you know, you're not seeing guys play a full 82. And so I do think they have an issue with this. But who's really to blame? Is it the commissioner? Is it the players? Or is it management or ownership? I really think that ownership, they have devalued the regular season. If you're good enough, you really only need to win about 45 games, maybe 50 to get a top seed. You want to be 1 through 4. And once you get that, you can go ahead. And to me, I'm more concerned about what happens in the postseason. I want my players healthy in the postseason. I don't want them to have 82 plus games on their body by the time we get to the postseason. I want them ready to go. And so if I'm putting billions of dollars into this, yeah, I am going to manage it, because really, going 72. I mean, with the Warriors went 73-9, and they did not win the championship.
They didn't win it all, right?
And so having the best record does not always, being 68 and whatever does not always guarantee that you're going to win the championship. And we've seen that happen. And so I would rather be a 45, 50 win team and win the championship, as opposed to really going that far and my players are broke up at the end. And so what do
Golden
you think?
State proved that last year. Golden State did not have the best record at all. But in the postseason, they had all their guns, all their horses, and they ran through the West. Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think this is something that the commissioner needs to address? Should we put it on the players, or is it management and ownership?
Yeah, so the commissioner is going to have to address it. No matter what. No two ways about it. One of the things you mentioned is who to blame. It's the owners. It's also technology. So we talk about how back in the day, they didn't have as good medical situations and good travel, and everything is a lot better now. But one of the things that's also better is science and research. So the science and the research says that you don't want to wear down your body so much. So that's going to cause players to get load management. That's going to cause the All-Star break now to be 1 week instead of the 3 days that it was when we were growing up watching the game. So now it's a full week. So, these are players getting rest and not putting the wear and tear on their body. And these players are an investment now for these owners. So, they definitely want to do everything they can to keep them healthy. But because that science is better and the science says, hey, we're not going, and that's clearly load management. We don't want to give them a full load. We want to give them time to rest and relax, even though they're not hurt. We're trying to prevent them from getting hurt. So, a lot of the science has a lot to do with it. But you got to do something, because again, you're hurting the fan base. And you, just like Charles Barkley mentioned, in the next couple of years, that TV deal is going to start paying these guys $70-80 million a season. And it's going to get worse, the load management, if you don't address it now. If I'm making or if I'm paying a guy $80 million a season, hell. And let's say I'm just an average team, like you said, the teams below me are so much worse than me, they can't catch me, and I can win with my backups just to make the playoffs. I might play a guy once, maybe twice a week if I have to. My superstar, especially getting down towards the end of the regular season. The beginning of the season, I might let him get in there, show off a little. But when we're starting to get closer to the playoffs, God forbid that I get a LeBron James injury and he can't even make it to the playoffs, let alone when he gets to the playoffs, we don't know if he's going to be fully healthy. No, I'm going to make sure that they're healthy. So, the commissioner is going to have to find a way to address this. I don't know what that answer is going to be, but he's going to have to find a way to address this. You don't want to force players to play, because that's when you start getting into integrity issues with the teams and the trainers listing, oh, he's injured, and he's really not injured. He's just taking a day or two off.
Right. I think that, I've heard some ideas being floated around, like, well, maybe you tie in playing a certain amount of games to bonuses, or, being eligible to be named to all NBA teams, or if you've only played 40 games, you shouldn't be eligible to be named to an all NBA team, and all those things. And so, they might have to tweak it. I know it's not going to impact the money, because the players union is strong. And so if they start talking about taking away money, then that's going to be an issue. And I know a lot of these incentives that you have in the contract are tied to the accolades. They're tied to being named to all NBA team, or being named to the All-Star game, and different things like that. But they're going to have to think of something, because they're going to have to find some happy medium, because people are getting tired of it. And I think because the season's so long, I don't want to necessarily see them curtail the season or move it from 82 games. But I think they're just going to have to find a happier medium of how it works.
Absolutely.
Kevin Durant, he made his debut with the Phoenix Suns during the week, playing for the first time as a member of the Phoenix Suns on Wednesday night. Durant showed early signs of the potentially devastating 1-2 punch he can form with Devin Booker in a 105-91 win over the Charlotte Hornets, which snapped their 5-game win streak. Durant scored 23 points in 27 minutes. And Booker had a terrific all-around game with 37 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists. And so does this trade make the Suns the favorites over the Denver Nuggets to win the Western Conference? Because I think you picked Denver.
I did pick Denver. Denver's still number one, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't know if this trade necessarily. Well, initially the trade's not going to make them the better team, but you give them some time to gel. I don't know, man. Kevin Durant is such a special player, and now this is a Kevin Durant that you had in Oklahoma City, meaning that there's no pressure on him. When he went to Golden State, there was pressure on him because, of course, you left one team to go to the team you lost to in the finals. So everyone's looking at you like, yeah, what kind of difference you going to make, especially you got a Steph on the team. And he turned out to be the best player on their team for this time there. He goes to Brooklyn, and he's now the orchestrator of this so-called big three. So there's pressure on him there to win, and he's the spokesman of the team. Well, now you're going to a team that has a Chris Paul, that has a Devin Booker, that has a strong head coach. There's no pressure.
DeAndre Ayton, we don't even talk about him anymore.
There's no pressure on Kevin Durant. All you have to do now is play. And I don't know, man. That's a dangerous guy right there. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I still pick Denver. You know, they're giving Jokic a hard time about winning the third MVP.
They don't want people to win it 3 times in a row.
Yeah, but you can't deny him. You know what I mean? Like, you can't deny him. So we'll see. I'm still going to stick with my choice of Denver coming out of the West and being the number 1 team in the NBA. But yeah, if Phoenix were to move up there and bump them, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think they both need to be concerned about Golden State. They've won 5 straight.
Really?
Yes. I picked Golden State. They said Steph might be back next week. Clay has been averaging 27 plus. Yeah, you know, don't forget about them boys. Don't forget about them boys in the Bay. I think, you know, everybody kind of got, you know, oh, Jokic, and, you know, they got a little tickled over this KD trade. And the light-skinned assassin.
We did that last year.
The light-skinned assassin still up there like this.
Yeah. You're right.
Sleep, y'all.
You're right. No one gave them a chance last year. And when they got into the playoffs, they showed off. And yeah, man, you might be right. Remember I said I can see if Golden State doesn't win it all this year, I can see Steve Kerr retiring.
Right.
But I thought Golden State would be much worse than they are now. I'm not even going to lie. They've been maintaining.
They've been maintaining. And now, if this was me, I have a CPAP on. Y'all can't. If y'all, you might be able to see it if the camera works. But yeah, I'm doing a Steph Curry sleep, but I would have my CPAP on.
But so you still sticking with GSW? You still sticking with the Dubs?
I will not give up on the Dub Nation. Okay. We still there, kind of like Woo, but we still there, Dub Nation.
Okay.
We're still there.
I see you.
I'm gonna hold
you
up.
You can't count them out. Yeah. So one thing about Golden State is, if there's ever any credence to the term championship caliber, having been there before, knowing how to win in the big games, they are the absolute proven commodity of that.
My thing is, if they get hot, I mean, if Clay comes back, not Clay, excuse me, if Steph comes back and he's able to, you know, get to where he is, I think this is a nice little break for him. Again, he's not carrying the weight of a full season on his body. He's probably going to come back legs a little fresher, and I think he would be ready. really, I personally think they probably holding him out. He probably could have played by now, and they're just like, look, we're just gonna rock with Clay, what we got. Let's keep on going. And when we get to maybe 15 games left, 10 games left, come on back. Boom, let's go ahead and let's make this final run. Because if they don't win the championship this year, then they're definitely going to break up this team, because they're going to have to make a major decision about Clay. They're going to have to make a major decision about Draymond. They've kept a lot of the young core with Kuminga and Moses Moody. So they've got some decisions to make, although they traded Wiseman, who didn't work out for them. But I'm concerned about the other players.
Okay.
Porter's okay. Gordon's okay. Jokic
Jamal
is
Murray
the
can
man.
play.
I forgot. Yeah, Jamal Murray. He made a move last night. I was kind of like, okay, he back. Defensive, it's just something they get in the playoffs and it don't always work out. And that's what's happened the last couple of years. They've had great regular seasons, and then they get to the playoffs and it gets a little wonky. I think Phoenix, my concern about Phoenix is I don't want Chris Paul to get injured now, because Chris Paul is the glue. Yeah, they can go with KD and Devin Booker and Aiden down low, but I think Chris Paul, he really is the general of that team, and they just need to avoid some injuries. But it's going to be interesting coming up. These games mean a lot. It's too bad the Lakers are not going to be there to have any impact.
The Lakers are going to be there. Stop that.
They done. All right. Let's transition, man, to the NFL. A lot is happening. It's funny. This is normally kind of like a dead period of time right after the end of NFL season. We still kind of like, all right, let's start watching some basketball now. And baseball's not really kicked off, but there's actually been a lot of stuff going on in the news for us to talk about. And so one thing that's going on is our boy Brian Flores, and he can continue to press his discrimination claims in court against the NFL. And so NFL coach Brian Flores can pursue discrimination claims against the league in 3 teams, the Broncos, Giants, and Texans, after a federal judge on Wednesday rejected the option of arbitration, presumably before Commissioner Roger Goodell. Now, although the ruling clears the way to bring his charges to trial, the judge did state that Flores must pursue his claims against the Dolphins, though, through arbitration. The ruling also required 2 other coaches that were in the suit, Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton, to submit to arbitration as well. The league has tried to move the Flores claims to arbitration, citing contracts that the coaches had signed, but the judge didn't agree with that. And also, the judge had some other comments in terms of looking at the racial disparities in hiring in the NFL. And so is this the headshot that Flores and the other coaches needed to win this case?
So probably so, but I think the biggest deal is that it's being allowed to move forward. Now, with that being stated, what did Flores just get the
defensive coordinator job from the Vikings?
Yeah. So how does that affect that? You know what I mean? Like, does the NFL move against him? Clearly the Vikings don't want to, but does the NFL
affect it last year when he was with the Steelers?
Well, remember he got the Steelers position late, and I think he got the Steelers position because the Rooneys are clearly Rooney Rule. The Rooneys are believers in.
But I feel you. I'm saying it didn't affect Wilkes either. He had the job. He had the DC job with the Panthers.
Yeah.
And so I mean, they can't say, "Hey, don't give them no jobs," because I think
they can't. But then Wilkes didn't make it to the next season either. Yeah. So you know what I mean.
Fuel for the fire. But go ahead.
So that's my only concern for Flores. I don't know if it's a headshot. We've seen so many times where the NFL has been, we think, against the ropes, up on the ropes, but they've always come out on top for whatever reason.
Sure.
But we know why they've come out on top. But I think what this will do is start exposing things that they do not want exposed.
Right.
And this might be what it's going to be is what we need as fans and as viewers to hear and to see, especially as Black people, because you and I talk about it ad nauseum at least every other week. And that is, just like you mentioned, the disparity of Black coaches, Black head coaches in the NFL. And this was especially concerning when Belichick, who I still believe Belichick knew what he was doing when he congratulated Flores, then came back and was like, my bad,
no,
my bad.
I meant
I meant Brian Daboll. Yeah, I meant the other Brian. My bad.
Let me call you back.
Exactly, especially when Flores was scheduled to have his interview later in the week and didn't even get to his interview. But yeah, I think this is going to expose a lot of things. This, along with the Dan Snyder thing, the NFL is starting to well. I'll say it again, and it never seems to come to fruition, but the NFL shield is starting to crack a little bit. There's starting to be some cracks in there, starting to get exposed, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. I agree with you. I think going to trial was probably the worst case scenario for the league because they don't want to go through discovery. They don't want the stuff coming out about how they operate and how they make decisions and having to see this, the inside workings, the inner workings. Large corporations would rather settle with you than go to trial with you, because when you go to trial, that means you have to whatever you open up is up to public domain. The people can see it. And so you don't want people peeking behind the curtain when you are the Wizard of Oz. And so, they definitely got, this is going to be rough for the Broncos, Giants, and Texans. I really would have loved to see the Dolphins thrown in. And I think we already know that the Dolphins, it was inside cooking. The owner, Stephen Ross, his plans was to hire the coach, Sean Payton, yeah. And his desire was to bring Tom Brady to that team. And so we know that that's pretty much a thing. And, the Dolphins probably got off a little scot-free by having to go through arbitration. And more than likely that arbitration is going to be done by Goodell. I think, as we just continue to look at how the league moves, again, we just went through another hiring cycle, only one African-American hire. You had an owner talking about he's trying to destroy the old boy network. But what did he do? He went and hired an old boy. And so, it's a lot of, we got a long way to go. It's a lot of work to do. And I think this is good. I think this is good for Flores. I think this is probably in the end run is going to be good for the league, because we can't continue to have these opportunities denied.
Shout out to the analogy. Shout out to the analogy, Wizard of Oz. I see you.
Like
this is behind the curtain. I see you, son. Son, watch out, ESPN. Here we come.
Come on, man. We some well-read cats. Come on now. We read and listen to books. Come on now. Don't play with us. Come on now. For real. All right. EDC and Harbaugh, they meet the press, baby. I know that comes on Sundays on NBC. But, this was a different type of meet the press. As reported by Jamison Hensley of ESPN.com, at the NFL Combine on Wednesday, Ravens GM Eric DeCosta and head coach John Harbaugh met with the national press about the current state of the Ravens. DeCosta and Harbaugh reiterated their desire to sign Lamar Jackson to a long-term extension. DeCosta expressed hope that a deal could be reached with Jackson before the next week's franchise tag deadline, despite no agreement so far after 2 years of negotiations. And so after hearing EDC and Harb's comments, do you feel any different about the Lamar situation?
So any Baltimore fan probably feels this way, and it's really going to be no different. Let's just get something done. Just get it
burnt out, bro.
If you're going to keep him, keep him. If you're going to get rid of him, get rid of him. Let's just get something done. Now, what I will say, both interviews had a different tone. Both press conferences, rather, had a different tone to me. Harbaugh's tone was like, man, listen, I ain't in this contract negotiation. Me and Lamar, that's my guy. You know what I mean? I'm gonna let them deal with that over there. I love him. We talk almost every day. Like, that's my homeboy. Like, I call him. I be like, yo, you good? And he always be like, Coach, I'm good. Harbaugh was just like, listen, that ain't my thing. My thing is to get on this field.
Talk to him.
Exactly. EDC was more like, we making some progress, or I would like to think we're making progress, but I can't tell you specifically. And he was kind of almost like, you might need to ask Lamar if we're making progress. I think we're making progress, but I don't know if we're making progress. He was real non-committal in it. So I don't know if I feel better about it. It still feels the same way. We know what is today, the 4th. Yeah. The 7th is the date they have the franchise tag. Now, so for anyone that doesn't know, even if they franchise tag them, that doesn't mean that they do not continue to negotiate, because they can continue to negotiate. But the franchise tag is just basically saying you've got to commit one way or another by this date. So once they make that commitment, again, they can still negotiate. So it's still not over. So we could be going through this until the season begins, and even through next season.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's just so much tension. I mean, that's all that Baltimore is talking about right now. I was at church. Some of the old deaconess was like, they need to fire EDC. I'm like, oh my God, the deaconess is mad about this and about Lamar. And so, yeah, the 7th is the date of destiny, and we know where we're going to be heading with that. I do think that we're going to reach the franchise tag, unfortunately. And, we talked about this in detail last week about the non-exclusive and the exclusive and all those things. I don't want to rehash that. But, I think, they're going to try to do their best. And I just think, we're starting to see something under the veneer of the Ravens franchise. As a matter of fact, in the same interview, when asked about how he evaluates wide receivers, DaCosta stated, if I had an answer, that would probably mean I would have some better receivers. We're going to keep swinging. There have been some guys that have been successful players for us that were draft picks. We've never really hit on an all-pro type of guy, which is disappointing, but it's not for a lack of effort. It's one of the anomalies that I really can't explain, other than to say that we're not going to stop trying. And so that set off a firestorm response tweet from your boy Rashad Bateman. In a since deleted tweet that he tweeted on Thursday, Bateman called out EDC for his comments about the team's disappointing track record for drafting pass catchers. Bateman, who was a first-round pick by the Ravens in 2021, tweeted, "How about you play to your player's strength and stop pointing the finger at us in number 8? Blame the one you let do this. We take the heat 24/7 and keep us healthy, care about us, and see what happened. Ain't no promises, though. Tired of y'all lying and capping on players for no reason." It really took me, I had to read that in the broken way that he typed it. Boy, things ain't looking good in Ravens land. And so who's the blame here, EDC or Bateman?
So reading Rashad Bateman's tweets, I got that Meek Mill kind of feeling, that dreams and nightmare. He started off, all his whole career, it's time to rhyme like this. And you know what I mean? The next thing you know, he's like, hold up, wait a minute. Y'all thought I was to finish. It was like this was brewing inside of him, and he just had to let it go. I really think that you ever notice someone that wants to pick a fight with you will just wait for you to say something kind of close, and then they just go off on, because what EDC said was actually factual. They have not hit on wide receivers in the draft, and hopefully they can. And so far, the track record, they haven't been able to do it. So Rashad kind of took that personally, but you have an excuse, sir. You've been hurt the last 2 seasons. So it's not like he was pointing the finger at you. Of course, if you had time to get on the field, then yeah, and you felt you were doing your best, then yeah. Now, what Bateman said is exactly right, and we've all been saying it. You got to use your weapons properly and blame the right people. And of course, he's alluding to the trainer, the now gone trainer, the now fired offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. Of course, he's alluding to that. So I think Rashad Bateman has a point, but I think he was just trying to get it out. And he got it out at a time where it was just one of them, EDC wasn't talking to him. You know what I mean? He wasn't talking to or about you, but you had to let it out. So both points were correct. I don't think anyone is to blame there, but I do want to talk about the Ravens. I'm going to talk about him a little later on. But yeah, I think it was I think it was him just airing out some frustration because at this point, you're not really defending yourself. You're defending Lamar Jackson and you're defending the offense as a whole.
Right. I think, and I'm going to say this first before I get to EDC or Bateman. To me, if you're going to say it with your chest on Twitter, don't delete it. I'm tired of this. If you put it out there, what's the whole thing of going back and deleting the tweet? It's there. People will screenshot it. We got it. Why are you going back to delete it? Is that like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a racist because I'm sorry? No, bro, you didn't already said it. That's like saying I'm sorry, but okay, don't delete it. Say it with your chest, son. You had enough strength to say it on Twitter. You had Twitter fingers. You was a Twitter gangster. Leave it there. Okay, so let's start with these deleted tweets. I just want to put that out. Maybe I had to do a come on yo on deleted tweets, but because this gets on my nerves. Oh, he tweeted, but he deleted it. Dude,
like we ain't seen it. Like we
ain't seen it.
You didn't delete it from our memory,
right?
This ain't Men in Black. You didn't hit us with the little.
That's because you clear your browser. Don't mean your wife can't see them X-rated sites you went to.
Okay, oh, for real?
Yeah.
Never mind. We'll do that.
You thought you cleared your browser? No, son. They can always find it. All right. All right. And so anyway, now in terms of the blame here, we just haven't seen a healthy Bateman on the field, and I don't know if that was tied to Steve Saunders or not. We're going to talk a little bit about this ranking, these Yelp rankings, in a minute, but. Yeah, definitely. We have not seen a fully healthy Bateman on the field. He missed part of his rookie year, then started last year off fairly well and then got injured and then didn't finish the season. And so, we haven't seen a full U. And so there's a lot going on into that. We know that the offense was not designed for wide receivers. It is a offense where really two positions thrive in the G-Roll offense, in the Greg Roman offense. The quarterback, tight ends, actually I'll say three, and running backs. Okay, if you look at what happened in San Francisco, Vernon Davis had some of his best years as a pro playing in that offense. Colin Kaepernick.
Hall of Fame consideration.
Right.
Playing in the G-Roll.
Yeah. Frank Gore played very well in that offense. When he was in Buffalo, Tyrod Taylor played very well in that offense. The tight ends, Dawson Knox and others, they did very well in that offense. And so it's not an offense that accentuates the skills of wide receivers. And so hopefully with Monken, we'll start to see that. And so, but I will share this. I saw a tweet this morning. This is the Ravens draft capital invested in wide receivers since 2018 through 2021. Jaleel Scott, Jaleel Scott and Jordan Lastly in 2018. Right. They were both drafted in the 4th and 5th rounds. Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin in 2019. Marquise was in the 1st round. Miles Boykin was in the 3rd round. Boykin just turned into a blocking person. Marquise, he had a decent career here. 2020.
2,000-yard receiving seasons.
Yeah. 2020, Devin Duvernay and James Prochet. And 2021, Rashard Bateman and Tylan Wallace. And so, DaCosta has not produced in terms of drafting. And we even talked about that when we were having the little mini broadcast after the Ravens game when they were blowing these games in the, early in the season. He has not done well of drafting talent at wide receiver, and it shows. And so I think it's a combination of both. They have to have players healthy on the field, and they're going to have some home runs, and they have not had a lot of home runs at that position. And my thing is, if you can't draft well, you're going to have to go out and spend the money. And I have to give that to Ozzie. He was able to identify. I don't have anything against older receivers, but let them have a little bit of tread on the tire. You know, you got a Anquan Bolden with tread on the tire, a lot of tread on the tire. You got Steve Smith with a lot of tread on the tire. Okay, and so you can get some receivers who still have some tread, and you can work with them, and you can pair them with a Torrey Smith or others that are growing into the position. But they haven't been able to do. They've been trying to follow that, and they've ended up with Des Bryant and Deshaun Jackson.
And you're right, even going back to Ozzie, because this wide receiver thing for the Ravens isn't just an EDC thing. It is an Ozzie thing, too. Even going all the way back to those drafts, what wide receiver have the Ravens ever drafted that have actually turned out to be very good, other than Torrey Smith? And you're looking at free agency, you got a guy like a Derek Mason that they brought in, and Derek Mason did very well for the Ravens, so you're right. And what's been happening with the wide receivers is they've been bringing in, like you said, these guys that just either too injury prone, Sammy Watkins, or just really not that good.
Robinson.
Now, my guy, oh man, I can't remember his name, that went to the Raiders last year after he was 2 seasons with Lamar. They gave him a hard time. I will say Willie Snead, he did come through a few times being that outlet valve, but he wasn't a great receiver. And the thing is, you're signing these guys that are just there. Ravens need a guy, like not just guys. They need a guy, and then you pair him with if they could sign like a Brandon Cooks. I don't think you like Brandon Cooks that much. I'm a Brandon Cooks guy.
Injured a lot.
But if they can sign a guy, you pair him with Bateman, and then you draft a decent receiver, they'll be well. Like they'll do very well. You may not get a Devontae Adams in the draft or in free agency, but you don't necessarily need Devontae if you can have one very good receiver, a Rashard Bateman who can be a very good receiver, and then a rookie that can just have his time to run out on the field and get the third coverage. Just something. Something. But we haven't even been able to do that.
Yeah, just think Lamar in his NFL year, his MVP year, he threw touchdown passes, 45 touchdown passes to Seth Roberts, Willie Snead, Marquise Brown, and Miles Boykin.
Let me tell you, the one thing that, and I rarely look at another team with some envy, but I looked at the Cleveland Browns with so much envy when they picked up Amari Cooper. What they give him? A 3rd round pick?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. We should. There's no reason the Ravens should not have gotten Amari Cooper instead of Cleveland. There's absolutely no reason for that.
I agree with you. Now, the players, they left some Yelp reviews, Calvin, and it wasn't pretty. The NFL Players Association on Wednesday released what it describes as a free agency report card for all 32 teams, presenting the results of a player survey on topics ranging from the quality of the team's facilities to treatment of players' families. The Players Union ranked all 32 teams against each other in the hope of providing players with information that might be able to use in free agency when deciding on new teams. The top 3 ranked teams overall in order were the Vikings, the Dolphins, and the Raiders. The bottom 3 ranked 30 through 32 in order were the Chargers, Cardinals, and the Commanders. Now, the Baltimore Ravens, they ranked 17th overall in these rankings. And the main concerns about the Ravens that the players identified were stemming from player opinions was the desire to improve the quality of food in the cafeteria, weight room equipment, recovery resources, and strength staff. At the core of these issues is the team's former head strength coach, who was Steve Saunders, who resigned last week. An assessment of him was very negative. As a matter of fact, he received a F-. And so that placed this club as one of the lowest in terms of strength coaches in the league. Overall, 38% of the players felt that they received a individualized plan for their strength training, and many complained that the training room was understaffed. The players do believe that Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti's commitment to high quality, as 100% of them believe he is willing to invest in upgrades to the facility. And so let me give you their rankings real quick. In terms of treatment of families, The players rated it as C+, which is 18th out of 32 teams. Food service and nutrition was B-, which put them 13th overall in the league. Weight room was C+, which put them 22nd. Strength coaches, again, was F-, which put them last. Training room was C, which was 21st. Training staff was B+, which put them 22nd. Locker room facility was an A, which put them 5th in the league. And team travel was an A, which put them 4th. And so, and this opened up a can of worms for about 11 ex-players to come up and start. I mean, you had Judon, you had Hollywood, you had some Ian Bandejo, you had Carl Davis, you had 11 players just all. Yeah, I remember my second year. He had me doing this, and we talked last week about Derek Wolf, how Derek Wolf on his show said that he basically his career ended because of Steve Saunders. Matt Judon hates his guts, and Matt Judon won't stop tweeting about Steve Saunders. And so, what are your thoughts overall? Because a lot of times when we think about the Ravens, we're thinking like this is a top tier organization, but the players don't seem to think so.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get into come on, yo. But it's so funny that a guy like Carl Davis said something, because when you first read his tweet, the first thing you're going to say as a Ravens fan is, "Who's Carl Davis?"
Right.
And then you come back with
the players. I was like,
exactly. Who's Carl?
Quincy
Exactly.
Bandeo? Who's that?
Exactly. That's why you don't know me. Exactly. Because of your strength and training coach. I never was able to get on the field. Yeah, man. But
was it because of Matt Judon and the other players before in front of you that you couldn't get on the field?
I mean, but still, they're gonna blame it. But anyway, Judon wanted him fired. Judon told the organization get rid of him.
Yes.
Right. But it's one of them things where I don't understand how they kept him anyway, because this is the guy that brought COVID into the locker room.
Yes.
When they had to play a Wednesday night game against the Steelers with one starter. Didn't they have one starter that game?
They moved the game 5 times. It was
a Wednesday night game because of one guy. How do you not get rid of him after that? Like, what?
They had to have Trace McSorley finish the game because RG3 couldn't finish the game. It was that bad.
It was like COVID was running rampant through the facility.
They signed that old tight end from Seattle, and he dropped the ball. People were so mad. I think he got cut the next week.
First of all, we all love the NFL, but who wants a Wednesday night football, a regular season game?
Crazy. Like, all right, the game's going to be on Sunday. No, it's going to be on Monday. No,
they moved it to Monday. I think they even moved it to Tuesday, and then they were like, "No, we're going to do Wednesday." What? So yeah, man, these reviews. Now, I will tell you, I will say this. This is the first year that they've done that, and it's all laughing jokes, and we're all just looking at it as a piece of material. But these are player rankings, player reviews. So let's say that it comes down to, let's say you're a free agent, and it comes down to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 teams that made it to the Super Bowl. And yeah, Kansas City did win the Super Bowl, but I believe Kansas City is ranked last in one of these categories. If you're a player, and all things being equal, who's to say you're not going to go to those rankings? Because we already know players call one another and say, "Hey, man, I'm thinking about coming there. Tell me more about the organization. Tell me more about the facilities, how they treat everybody." So this could eventually start having some impact on where free agent signings go. So I think it would be in the best interest of the teams to improve the things that the players are deeming as a negative on your team.
Yeah, we do the same thing, Calvin, just in regular life. Sometimes we pick things because we know we have faith in the service or what they can provide or the facility over something that might maybe be a little bit more expensive or, give us more cachet because I can trust this and I believe in this. And like, I agree with you. Players talk and, I think you're going to have to do some work if you consider yourself a top organization, because sometimes it's not all about money. Sometimes you're making decisions on I got a big family. I want to make sure that, I can bring my family into the facility. That's one of the reasons why Ken Griffey Jr. did not sign with the Yankees, because of the way that they treated his dad. He tells a story. He was at Yankee Stadium and he had his son out on the field, and the official came up to him and told him they couldn't be on the field. But then when they looked over, they saw Craig Nettles and his son over there taking batting practice or hitting grounders. And the treatment of the family, he said he would never play for the Yankees just because the way they treated them.
It's a forever F the Yankees to this day. To this day. And he ain't even played in 10, 15 years.
Right.
To this day, it's forever F the Yankees from Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah. So it carries a lot of weight. And so we'll see what happens with the organization, because yes, they're well in some things, but I think sometimes you stick with people to a fault. Sometimes we see the tea leaves. We see that we need to make a change, but sometimes we stick because of familiarity or that we're comfortable, but sometimes we need to be uncomfortable in what we're doing. And so we'll see what happens for the Ravens. And so this brings us to our favorite segment of the show. Come on, yo. So Calvin's going to start us off this week with his Come on, yo.
Ooh, the times I used to rhyme like this. Ooh, let me get my Meekville on.
Oh, it's a hot one. It's a hot
this
one,
is
y'all.
One.
It's a hot one.
So, and this is something that Garland and I have both alluded to since we've started doing these podcasts, and then also in private conversations. But Joy Taylor of Fox Sports, she actually did a segment where
I know you didn't hear that.
where she talked about how the Ravens are not the Ravens of the past, and EDC is probably, and even Stephen A. Smith talked about this, EDC is probably the cause of all of the Ravens' problems. And yeah, you can pinpoint it to him, but it's, for me, since day one, since the first game against the Raiders, with Vinny Testaverde being the quarterback down at Memorial Stadium, I have been a Ravens fan since day one. And as a fan, the one thing that we always do is we put on these rose-colored glasses, and, we don't want to see the problems in our own organization. And the Ravens have an amazing reputation throughout the NFL, but it's starting to get exposed. These are not the days of old. These are not the Ozzie Newsome days. The Ray Rice situation, for me, was an eye-opener. That was one of the things that I figured I looked at, and I was like, the Ravens did not handle that very well. We've gotten past it. They've made amends with Ray Rice. He's in the circle. They brought him back to the field a few times this year. Community. He does a lot in the community here in Baltimore, but that was just an eye opener for me. That's when I started looking like, everything may not be as peachy, but you still wanted to ignore it. Let's move to the Colin Kaepernick situation. It's one thing to want to play on your team. It's another thing when your owner starts to take the opinions of the fans, which he knows is going to be a negative opinion for most of the fans, because who are most of the Ravens fans. So that was another thing. Like, if you're going to make an organizational decision, make the organizational decision. If you want the fans to start helping you make decisions, then every negotiation, you need to come to the fans. So that was another thing that made me say, things are just, this is not the Modell Ravens. Now we come to this point. Players are different. The way they handle things are different. Social media is out here now, and the Ravens are starting to get exposed. Even if you look at that player ranking, C pluses and C minuses, that might seem average, but that puts you at 22nd. There's only 32 teams in the NFL. So that puts you in the bottom half of the teams. Plus, for an organization that's supposed to be so amazing, how are you getting a C on family treatment from your players? Family treatment would seem like one of the easiest things to be, just to be good to my family. But you actually have players that don't think you're treating the families as well as you can be. So, it's starting to open your eyes a little. That press conference they had with EDC, there was one thing that stood out to me. EDC said, draft capital, we only have 5 draft picks. And for a guy like me that likes a lot of draft picks, I have to get in my mind that 5 because that's disappointing. It's not a lot. I also have to remember that we don't have a second round draft pick. And now our second round draft pick is Roquan Smith. And that's acceptable. But I would really like to have a second round draft pick. Are you kidding me? If I'm Roquan Smith, I'm like, acceptable. Right. I led the league in tackles. I'm one of the best middle linebackers and arguably the best in the game right now. I'm young. I'm 25. You're trying to say that me as a second round draft pick is just acceptable? Those are the kind of things that when they get to player rankings that the players look at and say, you don't really value me like I thought you did. So it's a whole new Ravens. I firmly believe if Ozzie Newsome were GM, Lamar Jackson would be signed, or a decision would have been made by now. I just don't think the Ravens organization is the organization that we're used to. I think there's a lot of flaws in this organization. I think a lot of the way they handle things, again, we talked about Steve Saunders. They should have been fired him. Harbaugh probably should have been fired, but, they're giving him another chance. They hold on to people way too long. Greg Roman should have never gotten another year in Baltimore. I don't think the organization is as solid as we think it is. They're living off of reputation. And come on, y'all. Ravens, you got to start making a move. And Ravens fans, we have to stop acting as if the Ravens are the end-all, be-all. Because when we talk about who's right and wrong in situations, Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback the Ravens have ever had, bar none. I know Flacco got a ring, but Lamar Jackson is clearly much better. And the Ravens are gritting their teeth to pay him. Come on, yo. Something should have happened by now. The Ravens are not the same Ravens that we knew back then. The organization needs to step up and treat their players better and treat the organization as a whole better. Come on, y'all. Come on, Ravens. Come on, y'all. Do better.
It's funny. You said that the rankings and stuff. It remind me, I do some adjunct teaching at the University of Baltimore, and we always have teacher evaluations by the students. And, I always laugh at them at the end of the year because there'd be I don't see the people who personally fill it out, but when I get the results, it's always a range of like some people love it and then some people hate me, but they'll never say that. And, so I'll be thinking like I'm doing well. And then when I see the evaluations, it'd be like, he's not flexible. He doesn't understand the life of a college student. One of them said they hated me. And because I always tell them, be honest, because it's kind of like Twitter. You can do it and I can't see you. And so, obviously y'all thinking everything's smooth on the top, but it ain't beneath the surface, so yeah, I agree with you, man. Ravens fans, wake up, because obviously there's more going on than what we're seeing.
A lot more.
All right, so let me hit my little come on, yo. And I know Calvin was waiting for me to go in on your boy Dion again, subprime, because I went on subprime last week, and I went in on him on Facebook this week about him trying to get the band to sound like the band at Jackson State and stuff. And yeah, Dion. Anyway, I think I diagnosed who Dion was last week, but let me say this. Last week, during the Come On Yo segment, I talked about Subprime Sanders and the statements that he made on the Rich Eisen show during the Super Bowl week about how he recruits players, which is based on dangerous stereotypes about players in certain positions. Although I was disappointed to hear a man that was allegedly sent by God to Jackson State University to be the savior of black college sports to say these things, I have to give Subprime a break, though. I'm going to be nice. I give Subprime a break because he was not the one who came up with these racist stereotypes. These racist tropes have been used by white head coaches, executives, and owners for centuries. There was a belief that black athletes could only thrive in positions that did not require intelligence. These were positions where they could use their natural God-given ability or talent. Because of this, blacks in football were not placed in positions like middle linebacker, center, strong safety, and quarterback because these were thinking man positions. It required them to call plays and to diagnose things. Now, that's also why we haven't seen an abundance of head coaches and or executives of color in baseball and football because of what former LA Dodgers executive Al Campanis believed. In 1987, during a segment to celebrate the breaking of the color barrier by Jackie Robinson, Nightline anchorman Ted Koppel asked Campanis, a former teammate of Jackie's, why, at the time, there had been few black managers and no black general managers or owners in Major League Baseball. Campanis' reply was, I truly believe that they may not have some of the necessities to be, let's say, a field manager or perhaps a general manager. Later in the interview, to defend his views, when pressed by Koppel, Campanis asked, why are black men or black people not good swimmers? Because they don't have buoyancy. Then Campanis doubled down on his views, suggesting that African Americans certainly are short on individuals with strong decision-making capabilities, asking Koppel, how many quarterbacks do you have? How many pitchers do you have that are black? Now, let me read you a list of names, Calvin. Barack Obama, LeBron James, Lamar Jackson, Jim Brown, Kevin Durant, Calvin Coates, Garland Thomas. All men raised in single-parent households, all successful, all leaders in their own right. But imagine these men being denied opportunities because they were raised by single parents. Come on, yo. Let's destroy these stereotypes and hold the people that traffic in them accountable. And so, Dion, I'm going to give you a break because, brother, you did not come up with these things, but it's not great to hear you say them. But we got to hold these other people accountable because, Calvin, there are even black people that, just like Dion showed, they're just everyday black people that believe in that. I see it all the time on social media. I saw something the other day. Someone's like, yeah, that's why we need fathers in the home. Like, whoa, Barack Obama didn't have his father. He only met his father once. According to his autobiography, he only met his father once at the age of 13. He became president. LeBron James I don't think LeBron James has ever met his father. But he's a brand. You can hate LeBron, he's a brand.
Billionaire brand.
Kevin Durant, raised by mama. Lamar, one of the greatest football players to ever play the game, and Jim Brown. Man, and you got your host right here, Calvin Coates and Garland Thomas. Come on now. So, yeah, we got to stop this. And, success is not just predicated on, yes, it's great that you can have two parents in the home, but it doesn't mean that you're a failure if you don't.
Yeah, man, I agree. Now, we're on the opposite side of the Dion thing when it comes to this. I'm blaming Dion. I absolutely did not like this. He was kikiing with the white boys on, and that totally destroyed my perception of Dion. By the way, you mentioned my name and your name. I don't know about you, but I can swim, sir. So I have some.
I can swim as well.
Yeah,
I have buoyancy. I took lessons at the Y as a little kid. Yeah, I can swim.
I remember that interview, and Ted Koppel gave him every chance to.
Like, Ted
Koppel just kept coming back like, so what I'm hearing you say is, like, he gave him every chance to draw, and he just kept doubling down, tripling down. And that wasn't even in the age of social media. So it really doesn't get as much recognition as it should. It doesn't get as much attention as it should. It was horrible. But yeah, man, you're right. Dion did not make it up. But yeah, Dion, you can't just keep. Come on, Dion.
Yeah, come on, Dion. But I'm a hold the man accountable because the man is still using these things, obviously, just because we can't get our black coaches jobs. We can't get our players are, still subjected to this. And so,
do we still say the man is holding us back, brother?
The man
The man is holding us back, brother.
That was the enemy of every black exploitation movie in the 70s. The man.
The man, sucker.
The man, sucker. Yeah, turkey.
Hey, man, this was another good podcast. And again, This is a video podcast, so you get to see our beautiful mugs. Like we said, we're preparing our wives, and we're looking for security now, because when we walk these streets, we're going to have to get them to hold the women back. You know what I mean? It ain't our fault. It ain't our fault. We were blessed with this. This was thrusted upon us.
God did this.
Hey, we missed last Tuesday, but we will probably jump back this Tuesday. Yeah, we're going to definitely
doing some shenanigans on BMF.
Yeah, we're going to BMF, and then we're going to start Snowfall. So we're going to be a few episodes into Snowfall to get you ready for the next episodes of Snowfall. Yeah, I don't know what Garland and Calvin doing, Lee, but they ain't even come on here. Jerome tripping, Louis tripping. Garland and Calvin don't even want to talk about us, Lee. Matter of fact, Lee, where you been, Lee?
Yeah, anyway, we
go
back to Ghana.
We gonna get on. We gonna talk about Snowfall and BMF. And of course, we're gonna be back next weekend to have another podcast. So make sure you rank, review, engage with us, especially on the sports podcast, because we absolutely love it. We are actually now on all of the podcast platforms. We're on Podcaster. We are on all of them. We're actually on Audible. We're on Amazon Podcast, Google Podcast. We're on every last one of them. You can actually see the video podcast on Spotify, and you can see it on YouTube. I download it on YouTube also. So we're everywhere. Yeah. So
as a matter of fact, man, that's showing up in my feed. I see. I be like, yo, come on now.
We might have to get a clothes sponsor or something. If you want your, all across.
You want your big boy gear,
what I'm saying?
X gear.
Might have to get us a makeup artist and a fashion. You know what I mean?
I had to get a little beat before I get on here.
Oh, you know what? I keep wearing a hat. I might have to buy me some hair, and because it's all on TikTok now, where they getting the hair and they just like. I might have to buy me some
get a
hair.
Unit.
Yeah, man.
I got a friend that do them. I might have to go and send you to the barber shop.
Yo,
doing it.
Yo, send me his number, because I'm. Listen, I'm gonna let y'all know right now. If y'all see me bust out with hair, that is a true sign that I have some money. So listen, I'm gonna let y'all know right now. If y'all see me bust out with some hair, I got money, y'all. I got money.
If you do that, I will find the Baltimore Grays old text line. I'll take 20 pictures and send it out and just let them roast you from here to eternity.
As long as them checks keep coming in, all attention ain't always bad attention. Yes, listen, if y'all want to just watch the podcast just to see my hair from, because I'm going to get the waves too, son. And not just the ones on top. I'm going to get them the ones that go all around your head, like the circles on the inside of a tree trunk. I'm going to get them all around the head. Hey, man, again, we thank you all for joining us. Let me play this outro. This new thing I keep forgetting to do. We thank you all for joining us. So make sure you join us next week when we do the sports podcast. Hey, Garland, we will talk to these people next week, and have a good weekend, y'all.
Peace, everybody. You have been listening to Fanboys, an all things black with Garland and Calvin production. Thank you for listening, and make sure to rate and review this episode on all of your podcast platforms.